Yes, another one about this guy. Absolutely. I don't think that, well, we're definitely not done with this topic or this um, situation here. We're not done. Because I'm going to tell you folks, y'all better start paying attention to Elon Musk. And not in the way that the mainstream media or hell, even most of social media tells you. You need to actually pay attention, folks. Because I just think that, yeah, there's a lot of underhanded stuff that goes on. People got their own little biases, but see, people have been brushing that by and not even looking at it, okay? Everybody worried about small hat community. They're worried about another country about the size of New Jersey, and he's running over these same places and bumping elbows with the elites and the government people. Okay, but everything is a one-sided situation, one-sided, and he's just letting out too many clues about who he is, and a good it's not a good part of his personality. Let's just say it that way. You know, I didn't know that Mr. Musk made any contribution or put his input into the situation with Claudine Gay over there at Harvard University, the first black female president that only lasted 6 months. So she got pushed out. She resigned because, scandals over so-called alleged plagiarism, which nobody's substantiated or proven yet. But, first thing was they had a problem with her answer about policy against anti-Semitism on the university when really she was scapegoated. Say what they want to say about whether people want to believe she's a DEI hire or affirmative action hire or not. The reality of it is the plagiarism claims had not been proven, but that's been a scandal. And you had these billionaires like Bill Ackman who were the tip of the spear for getting rid of her. Then you had the support of, well, apparently Elon Musk had made a statement in some social media platform when somebody was talking about the need to get rid of her, saying that, well, the only way is to defund the universities, right? So Elon put his little contribution on the situation. Not only did he do that, he also had a tweet where he showed the an article of some plagiarism claims against her, and he puts on there shocking with like a emoji face on there, which was basically him being sarcastic. Like in other words, I'm not actually shocked. She wasn't qualified. Hint, hint. So she's a diversity, equity, inclusion hire, so she shouldn't be there, right? At least that's how I interpret it. And I'm quite sure I'm probably not the only one. And then you had, other people like Mr. Dave Portnoy from Barstool Sports who went as far as to say we're not hiring any Harvard or MIT graduates until they do something about X, Y, and Z. Now, I have a feeling that the MIT call is probably going to that's probably going to go away. Because I have a feeling the president of that school has some leverage there, which some people could end up getting exposed, whatever the case is. So it's probably not a good fight with her. But it was it was easier with Claudine Gay. It was easier because there was more an ambition to go after her, right? So, the whole thing about it is Elon sits there and backs this stuff up. Number one, he doesn't know whether she actually plagiarized her dissertation, and there's yet to be any proof. There's yet to be any proof. Okay, Glenn Greenwald did a tweet on Twitter talking about this situation where Bill Ackman was interviewed about it. His wife got accused of the same claim, by the way, not shortly after all this other controversy, right? But went as far as to say he don't even know he doesn't even know the plagiarism claims are true. So really, it wasn't about if she did. It was about whether they could get her out of there. That's all that mattered. It was all about getting rid of her. It was all about getting rid of her, making whatever political point they wanted to make. Well, congratulations, you guys made it. The university fell to pressure. Claudine Gay was put in a position where she resigned, not because she chose to. She was basically forced to because the politics were getting too bad. School was losing money. See, but you know what? That's the reason why they don't get working class people, grown people don't give two shits about Ivy League schools. This is their little club that they want to, shake up a little bit and slap, poo poo. You're not acting in the way we want you to. So, we were going to take money away from you because basically what we want to do is we want to control how the universities operate and their politics, right? This is a push-pull effect here, what we got on with the so-called left and right. Well, yeah, Elon Musk's been putting his 2 cents in a lot of stuff. Okay, this is the man, the so-called free speech hero, and he believes in democracy and all that other stuff. But then, you know what? Let me tell you, y'all folks gotta remember: do not have this fantasy that you have of Elon Musk. You need to get rid of it. Okay. For as ingenious as he might be, and as much he's worth, or how many billions of dollars he has, the man is still flawed like any other man on this planet, and we need to look at him because some of those flaws that he has directly affect certain groups of people. All right, and I think it's pretty clear that he has these flaws, although people will say, well, you can't really prove it because he said this. We can do all this ducking and dodging, but it's something called pattern recognition. And by the way, not that I should have to say this, pattern recognition is not sexist. Pattern recognition is not xenophobic. Pattern recognition is not racist. And pattern recognition is not anti-Semitic. Pattern recognition is not any ism, okay? When someone points out that they notice something that continues to happen. But we have this situation where if you do, you're going to be called whatever ist, whatever racist, bigot, whatever type of, anti-LGBTQ, anti-trans, whatever. We got every shaming tactic term, right? But the reality of it is people know the right isn't a whole lot different. Don't believe they are. Because let me tell you something, despite what they want to say about Claudine Gay being resigned and whether she was qualified or not, this don't look good. So I'm sorry. Now people will sit there and say, well, Elon Musk is not really on the right. Well, I'd argue to say that he is more than people want to admit. Far farther on the right than people want to admit. Okay, we need to take an honest look here. Basically, Elon Musk is a person who has situational moralism, is what I would call it. It's good to be moral when the situation is convenient, but then when it's not, then guess what? We join with the club that, with the winning team. That's what I feel about it. I don't think that he's exempt from that any more than regular people, okay? And I think there's evidence of that he's operated exactly in that way if you really sit there and look at the situation. Okay, they went out of their way to get rid of Claudine Gay, and again, there's really no actual proof that she's not qualified for the position. She very well may not be, but I'm going to tell you, this was problematic for the people, whether they realize or not. They're going to end up answering for this in the long run. They're going to. Dave Portnoy, Elon, Bill Ackman, yeah, they might be rich, they might be wealthy, but guess what? Reputation-wise, they're going to take a hit, and all the censorship and all the, blocking and banning accounts is not going to stop it. It's not. So I'm telling you, this situation over there in Harvard, getting rid of that president, is going to have a backlash against them because at the end of the day, you send a message out to a whole bunch of other people, which you may not care about, but you will. You end up caring about because those same people are some of the biggest consumers out here, and they consume a lot of your product and services, whether you know it or not. And you're going to feel that when, by some chance, they see that you've been insulting them and degrading them in so many different ways. People are going to say, "Hey, wait a minute, why are we going to keep supporting this guy? Why are we going to keep patronizing his business?" But again, some of us maybe are perceived as, well, they ain't got no money anyway, so who cares about what they think? Well, guess what? We got a lot more money in this community than people want to act like. We were supposedly, at least according to reports I've heard, hell, I think Dr. Umar has even said we're like the 8th richest group in the world, right? If you look at what we have as far as how much money we represent. So the fact is, we have to start acting that way because these people have no problem insulting you to your face. Do they know what the hell you're going to do about it? That's their attitude. I don't care how much money they have. There has to be a line of respect. Everything can't be about money, people. I don't care if you're worth hundreds of millions of dollars. I don't care if you're worth $1 million. I don't care if you're worth 20,000. There has to be a certain bound of respect as humans, no matter how much money you got. Once we start crossing that line, we have problems, we have violence, we have chaos in some form or another. Okay? Because, then you go and you look at the other aspect of how, he had something to say about the statistics on the mainstream media, and which I already covered as far as that rabbit hole Twitter account there that's supposed to be some type of news reporting or political reporting site or a punditry site, really. But at the end of the day, as far as I'm concerned, that site is no different than websites or news organizations like WND. No different. No different. Just a different version of that. Different version of, some of these other more far right so-called news washclaws. Okay? Elon's hubris, I think, is going to get his hand slapped very soon, because I think that, you take that, right? You take the situation I just brought up, like where this woman gets fired. He has all these mocking tweets about it. He put his 2 cents in to encourage it as a way to give a means. He put his 2 cents in. Then now he's going to turn around and then say that he's going to have this, he's going to retweet the rabbit hole, pretty much, in my opinion, a far right site that's basically presenting statistics that's claiming that blacks commit more violence on whites than from an from epic proportion. And it's basically the way it all looks. And then they made it. They put a little emoji there, a little clip art picture of a fake drawing showing, so they could highlight the violence of whites against blacks, saying, look how small that is. They wanted to make that point. And then, of course, they quote Thomas Sowell, like I said, the black academic token. Basically, that's how they use him. It's not me saying it. That's how they utilize him. Because, again, seems to be the only black scholar that actually is worthy and respected in the world, I guess, according to these people. It's the way it looks, because they never quote anybody else when it comes to stuff like this. He's always the go-to guy, That's what makes you right away. That's what raised the red flag right there. So why is it only him, nobody else? And then, then you sit there and you look at the statistics, right? Let me tell you something. Let me show y'all something real quick, because I know this video's probably gone a little longer than I want to, but let me show y'all something. Okay? The National Crime Victimization Survey, NCVS. Let me tell you something about that, okay? Since Mr. Musk apparently thinks that this is a credible source, well, let me just break something down to you folks. I mean, I can show you a little information, but let me break it down to you. You can go look this up, because it's online. I'm not going to drop the link, but you can find it. Go to Google, you'll find it. Let me tell you something. When you go look and understand how they collect data, when you read, they tell you on there how they collect the data. And let me tell you something. I can tell you right now, how they collect the data really says more. Like, the statistics say more about who's reporting than what the actual balance or percentage or ratio is of interracial crime amongst, Spanish against blacks, and blacks against Hispanics, and whites against Hispanics, and Hispanics against whites, and blacks against whites. Let me tell you something. They said they got that from a particular table, right? So they gathered the data somehow. So you have to go do some digging. And that's why I'm saying, you can't, just because somebody presents a chart does not mean that's not a lie, doesn't mean it's accurate. But what I can tell you about how this National Crime Victimization Survey, the Bureau of Justice Statistics, how they collect the data, what they do is people call self-report. So that means that it can be accurate, but then again, it might not be. I'm going to tell you why. It has to be questioned. The reason why you can't go by those stats really is because the statistics can be more indicative of who actually reports than the actual ratio of crime racially. And that's a fact. And I'm going to tell you right now, somebody who is a statistician, I'm going to tell you right now, would back me up on that, because you don't know. If they did a statistic that said, okay, what's the percentage of blacks that report, what's the percentage of whites that report, they don't have that. They're saying that they get these statistics based on self-reporting, which means there's a possibility that white people report more maybe than the blacks and Hispanics. It's very possible. I mean, I'm not saying that. I don't know that to be a fact, but that's definitely a possible, logical proposal in this situation. That's the reality of it. So you got this guy here, Mr. Musk, who, as far as I'm concerned, as brilliant as this man is, it doesn't appear that he did his research well enough. But then again, maybe he didn't feel he needed to, because maybe he already, got a prejudice, and possibly he just assumes in his mind that, hey, it's probably true. Maybe it is true after all, But it's just you're building a pattern, sir. I mean, you're building a pattern. It's just not looking good, man. You know, it's not looking good. But again, that's why I think it's funny how, when it comes to black folks, there's this claim that you can't say nothing about black folks, but black folks can say something about everybody else. But you go on Twitter, you got other accounts, other mainstream folks, like I'm not going to say his name, but one particular um, former MMA champion, 5-time MMA champion, who's been talking a whole lot about the whole Gaza Israeli conflict and the whole situation, and I think he's on the right side arguing about that. But again, go look at the comments he makes about black folks. Okay, look at the comments some other people on social media and other platforms will say about black people. Some of it may be true, a lot of it that's just their opinion. At the end of the day, they feel real comfortable to do that. They don't feel comfortable to do that with a lot of other groups. I'm gonna tell you that right now. Well, they can say what they want, because they know some of the other groups will give them pushback. Now, don't get me wrong, they may still say things, but they know there's a risk of pushback, and I'm quite sure that they still operate within a certain level of constraints when they talk about certain these other groups, because they always say that if you want to know who's in power, to look at the people that you can't talk about. You can talk about black folks. You can't talk about a few other groups, but one in particular you really can't talk about because they got their hands in the levers of power, clearly. That's not propaganda. That's fact. Okay? And guess what? Mr. Musk is well aware of that because he's reacted to that, whether he wanted to or not. Because what a lot of y'all don't realize is no matter how much money Mr. Musk has or any other billionaire, their money is still in certain ways connected to the government. Why? Because they have to be licensed to be able to have the ability to get rid of a lot of competition. There's competition out there for a lot of these companies. It's just that they're not allowed to compete because these folks, a lot of them have had these government subsidies plus government contracts to where they basically get preference in the markets automatically, which isn't necessarily fair. It isn't fair in a lot of cases, but this is what gets done. Okay? So if you see this man, because he's worth a couple $100 billion as a messiah, you need to stop. Get out of it. Even the black conservatives, even people like, Mr. Foreman, who's been pretty celebratory about this man. And I can tell you, don't buy it, man. Don't buy it. Do your own research. I'm not telling you to believe me. I'm not telling you to believe what I say. Go do your own research and you'll see what I'm talking about. There's plenty of evidence to what I'm alluding to here. And I can tell you, we gotta start as men, as black men, as a group of people. We gotta start putting our foot down. And we gotta start not just letting these people think that they can just say any old thing, whether it be lie or truth, and just get away with it. No, they need to be called on, just like everybody else gets called on it, and including us. So this idea that we're just getting a special pass is a joke. It's a real joke. Okay, so yeah, I feel real serious about and real strong about this situation, this topic. I really do, because we can't just sit here and just let this keep going on. We have to have a response. We got to respond to this. And if they don't take it seriously, guess what? Make them get serious. Make them take it seriously by doing exactly the things they don't want you to do. Okay? We're the biggest consumer group in the world. We're basically the biggest consumers probably as a group in this country. So guess what? You have some leverage. You just got to utilize it the right way. And stop with the defeatist mentality, okay? Get off the old boomer defeatist mentality, because guess what? We can't afford to have that. Because all we got is to try to basically fight back against our image being distorted and being stereotyped in the most negative ways, okay? It's not fair to every one of us, okay? Because a few people, guess what? These same people, they don't accept it. They'll complain about it. They don't accept being broad brushed with other groups, factions or fringe factions or their group. They don't want to be broad brushed, but guess what? Seems to be we can. And the thing about it is, when you look at those statistics, you think this way too. Like I said, we're still the number one victims of racial hate crimes in America. So you got to question these things. You can't just look at them and say somebody showed you a chart and say, hey, yeah, it's probably true. They're lying about it. Guess what? That man picked and choose what source he wanted to believe. They don't get me wrong. Am I going to say that they don't spread propaganda no less? No, everybody's doing it on the right and left. But what he posted, as far as I'm concerned, not a credible source. And how they're trying to represent the data, how they're trying to represent a survey, which they know is a self-reporting mechanism, which means it may come down to what race of people do go to the point of reporting to these think tanks. I would gather to say probably a lot of black folks don't. But you know what the problem is? Black folks in general do not participate in politics in a very thorough, complete way anyway. That's one of our biggest problems. Right there in a nutshell. These other groups, they participate. You know what they do? They vote in local elections. They donate money. They report. They do all this stuff. A lot of us are not doing that. Let's just be real. A lot of us are not doing that. We need to get off our ass and be active when it comes to stuff. Because guess what? Everybody else is. But yeah, just with Mr. Musk, I'm a little bit. I'm slightly disgusted with him. Really, that's probably an understatement. But I'm not amused by his arrogance. I'm really not. And I tell you what, you shouldn't be either. Okay. He's putting his 2 cents into things where he calls himself trying to save the world or trying to help. First of all, he's not even American. Let's just get that established. He is not an American. He may have citizenship, but he is a South African. And he is not an indigenous. Let me go as far as to say he is not an indigenous South African. And you can clearly look at his face and know that just right off the bat. Okay, he came in and bought this company for $44 million, $44 billion, excuse me, and it wasn't worth that. He's not perfect. He had a want and a desire to get this company. He wanted to prove a point. In order for him to prove a point, guess what? He had to make some concessions. He had to make some compromises, which he's not trying to admit out in the open. But again, coming out there and telling Disney or Bob Iger to go, GFY, I'm not impressed. I must say I'm not impressed. Because he only did that after he went and visited a particular country. That's when all of a sudden it seemed like he had all this bravado. Okay? He's got plenty of bravado for certain groups of people. Appears to be black folks. You don't have no problem, pointing us out. Seems like it's fair game. And the question I want to ask is, why is it fair game for us but not certain other groups? Because he may deny that, but look, I think people that are not even black see that on X. They see that too. I'm just saying, look, I wanted to address this again because I'm sorry. I think this is something that is newsworthy to a lot of us. Okay, it just is because we use a lot of these services and platforms and everything else. And you know what? Maybe we need to start sniffing around at what advertisers support certain people. Maybe we need to start doing that. A lot of us don't. But you know what? What we do need to do is demand respect. We need to demand respect with action. And that means divesting. That means, doing things that actually getting people where it hurts, okay? Going out and putting up signs and screaming and yelling on the streets, yeah, that brings attention, but it's not going to stop these folks from disrespecting people, certain groups of people, and feeling like it's free reign to do it, like, to just go hog wild and claim, things like black folks are just going out here just on a tear, assaulting white people. Spanish folks are assaulting white people, but of course black people are doing it so much more. So the narrative is that brown and black people are the ones that are attacking white people, that epic proportions and white people are barely touching them. Meantime, like I said, the other statistics completely contradict that. So this is like an information war, all right? Where one person, really a propaganda war, really. Well, we're in the middle of it. But see, at the end of the day, it's always a common denominator with us. It's just like I said a long time ago. The only difference really between certain groups of liberals and other groups of conservatives, certain groups of conservatives is that one group sees you as less than human and don't think that you should be privileged to any type of humane treatment, where the other group, the quote unquote liberals, they think you should be treated a little bit better and treated with kindness, but at the end of the day, they still see you as an animal. They still see you as less than them. So both of them, in reality, agree on that, apparently. And y'all need to face it. And I can tell you something. Don't let none of these old folks tell you about you need to back up and wait for another 100 years before you get anything. Don't listen to that nonsense. We don't have that much time, people. Understand this is 2024, and if you just go and do the same thing you've been doing politically, we've been doing for the last six decades, I'm telling you, this might be the tipping point. This might be the straw that broke the camel's back, and we may never be able to get back. We may actually continue to topple, to basically spiral downward. Okay? Look at how you vote. Stop thinking who's racist. Oh, yeah, I understand there's racism in reality, but listen, these folks, look at the votes. You people don't even read the bills. A lot of folks don't read the bills. You can get them online. You don't see who's voting for these bills, and you don't read the bills. You just watch TV still. Okay? You can go online and read some of these bills. No, they tell you all those lot of lies online. Go to the government websites. Actually get it from them. Get it from horse's mouth. Then you're going to know. But let's go, people. Seriously, like this, you know what? I'm telling you, depending on how he deals with this criticism is going to depend on how bad it gets from the long run. Whether he wants to just bear down. Something tells me he's going to bear down when it comes to us, though. Tell you folks right now. That's my prediction. He's going to proverbially smash his fist on the table and say, how dare you, and too bad if you don't like it. What are you going to do about it? I'm telling you, I feel like that's going to be his attitude. But the only reason why that's going to be his attitude is because we allow it. Just remember that. If we allow it, we're going to deserve what we get. Guess what? They say scared money don't make money. And at the end of the day, you got to demand respect, not ask for it.